JP's Budget Collecting, another episode of our indie show where we're continuing our way through this massive 100 Bullets omnibus, part one. And I got my guys, John. Maybe there he is. Missed the button the first time. What's going on, John?
I'm just excited to get into more of this noir goodness.
Yeah, and we got our guy, man, Adam Daymares. What's happening, sir?
Not much. How you doing?
I'm, hanging in there as best I can. And my highly exciting life I lead, I like roll from the bedroom to the kitchen to the living room and then roll back and, read books and watch TV. It's exciting right now. I am living the dream. We are talking volumes 5 and 6 of 100 Bullets tonight. So just in general, John, what are your thoughts about this portion of the story here? We get volume 5 is one story and volume 6 is 6 stories, like individually. What is your thoughts on this portion of the overall tale here?
I mean, it's a nice mix of long form and short form storytelling, like you're saying. I think it's I'm gonna right off the bat, I'm gonna mention the show Lost. It gives me Lost vibes, where it's like you just can get brief moments with characters sometimes, and we'll catch up with them later. Oh, this is a Cole episode or a Graves episode, those kinds of things. And then you have something like Milo's story, which is this kind of like meteor thing where they really get into his moment in time. And obviously they have to give him his whole time here because it doesn't have much more that you can do beyond this for him. But he does have repercussions that, as we see in the 6th volume, they're talking about what happens here in the 5th.
Yeah. What about you, Adam? What do you think of this section of the story here, these 2 volumes?
I think besides, I forget what his name is from the last issue, that there was essentially the comedy.
Wiley.
Besides Wiley, I think this noir section of 5 is probably my favorite series so far.
No, I can totally see that.
Just the way it, the writing fit the art style really well. I felt just the, sort of the throwback, and then just some little pieces in there that, I just thought it was really good. Not that 6 isn't bad. I really liked 6 too. I really like the little short stuff added in there too. Again, it's, that good mix of long form and short form that makes it a really good read.
My LCS owner loves 5, and that was his favorite volume. And when he got me to read this, he gave, when I got back into comics, he gave me all these Vertigo books to read. Oh, here's a volume of this. Here's a volume of that. And he's like, you got to get through volume 5. That's my favorite. You got to get. So with 100 Bullets, 5 was always this kind of interesting connecting between him and I, as far as like his feeling like this is when it hits its stride, or this is when it hit something interesting for him.
Yeah. So I would agree with that. I don't know that it's my favorite so far, but it's definitely close. I will say Milo is. Yeah, he's one of the better characters, I think, in a lot of ways, in the way they flesh him out here. I think it takes some interesting twists and turns that we'll dig into in a minute. But yeah, I would agree. I think volume 5 is it's a very strong volume, whereas volume 6 is. The whole series walks this fine line, as we've talked about before, of like an overarching story, but then these individual vignettes that just kind of fit in. And this is maybe the strongest of these vignettes that fits in. It ties to the overarching story, but not in an overt way, like that it's moving that other story, obviously, I guess, in that way. But yeah, we meet up. Let's just dive in here into volume 5. And we had previously seen Agent Graves had given a briefcase in the hospital to this guy whose whole face was wrapped in bandages. And we didn't know his story. And we get his story. And this is Milo. And we see him here like walking around, face all like busted up, and he's smoking and drinking, right out of the hospital. So what were your thoughts when we meet Milo here, daymares. What did you think of our initiation with Milo?
First, honestly, it was taking me a little bit to figure out, what direction he was going to go, because, you didn't know why he was in the bandages. You didn't, it didn't look like he was that great of a guy to begin with, because he's getting drunk, but he didn't want to get too drunk.
Yeah.
So he picks a fight with someone to get his adrenaline to go, and so he's not quite as drunk.
So he can be on the edge.
He can be on the edge, yes. And then that made him too sober, so he drinks some more to get right on the edge. I was like, okay, interesting.
Yeah. What about you, John? What did you think as we're getting introduced to Milo? What did you think of this character as a whole here?
I mean, he's visually interesting, right? He's memorable visually. This like mummy in a business suit who's just like something of a sloppy drunk. I think there's something arresting about his appearance that's just very like you're taken by him. And it gives me Chinatown vibes when he's got the big bandage across his nose. Yeah. It does, for me, throw back to good noir detective stories. And then, of course, it's a classic private eye, in over his head, the cops from one side, the criminals from another, beautiful women on the other side. Everybody's playing him, and he's just trying to keep up. And he's clever, and he's able to solve problems in ways you don't particularly think he can. But he's also probably his own biggest problem.
I don't know if there's probably to that, but yeah.
I think a lot of and we'll get into it in a bit, I guess, but a lot of the Minutemen you can see are just so fractured inside, whether it's life or whether it's the event in Atlantic City. These are very fractured individuals, and they're just carrying this. And there's certainly elements of this, the hypnotism that is played out all the way through, of them being kind of like under hypnosis, right? But like, that's just the Atlanta side of it, the Atlantic City side. There's also just like who they are. Like Lono was never hypnotized, and that guy's fucked up. Like, they all have this like inner trauma that they're just damaged goods, and you can see it all the way through with Milo, and it's on the exterior as much as it is on the interior.
Yeah, for sure. And so we get into this, and yes, he's clearly had an accident that he thought was an accident, turned out not to be, which is why Graves has given him the case, and it's completely tied to this case he was working as a private eye. And we see him kind of going to follow up to talk to the guy, and he bumps into Lono in the hallway. So we all know what that means, but he doesn't know what that means.
Right.
And he finds the guy that he was working for dead, and it sends him, down this path that we're going to follow the rest of the way here, with trying to figure out what exactly was happening, what was going on, why they tried to bump him off. And yeah, he's following up with the guy that was supposed to deliver the case to, or this painting that they were trying to steal. And so what did you think just of the overall way this case that he's following is laid out here? Like the people, the thing, like the mystery, as it were. Did you find it actually mysterious? What did you think of it, Adam?
I'm sorry, I missed some of that. I was reading some lines here in the book.
It was a very long question, so I'll dive in.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, it's a plot device. Like the characters are more important than the mystery he's trying to piece together here, right? Milo is the crux. This is a character-driven, not plot-driven story. And what I like, though, is every once in a while the plot rears its ugly head, and you're like, "Oh crap! That is how this puzzle piece connects to the bigger narrative this way," right? Like when he sees the painting for the. It's like for the first time, and it's titled or has the word Krakoa on it, and you're like, and he snaps out, right? He has some memory that comes out of it. There's those kind of moments, or when, like you're saying, Lono shows up, and we're now a step ahead of Milo for a little bit, and then he sits down at the bar with Cole, and has a little awkward conversation where Cole knows what's they're hoping to accomplish here, but Milo is still way behind. And ultimately, Milo is a step behind everybody the whole way, which is why he gets the fate that he gets at the end.
Yes.
And I like that, right? You're cheering for him like an underdog. Like, come on, Milo, like work it out, buddy. Get it together. You can
figure this out. You can figure this out. But yeah.
But yeah, the plot, the mysteries, as much as they're like classic noir, indecipherable, like I don't even know what the hell's happening in the story sometimes.
Yeah, it was very strange.
How do these plot strands come together? Like, it reminds me of The Big Sleep, which is a great Humphrey Bogart noir movie that if you can decipher it after watching just 2 times, like, I would be impressed. Like, for me, I've watched it probably 12 times and I still barely scratch the surface of what the heck's happening in this movie. And it's kind of the same with Milo here.
So yeah, so what did you think about, like, just the story here that we're into, Adam, was the question. Like, just the overall story the mystery he's trying to figure out.
Yeah. I thought the spider web, analogy I think that John mentioned is explains it quite well, that there's so much of this that's tied together that he doesn't know about. In fact, a lot of the other people don't know about. Like Lono didn't know who he was.
Yes.
You don't find that out till later. Yeah,
and I love the fact that so at one point he takes the bandages off and we get to see him, but then he just decides that, like, because he's having the memories, that he decides, no, I like the guy I am now. He puts the bandages back on when Lono comes. So Lono still doesn't know who he is, where he would have recognized him if he'd left the bandages off. It might have resulted in a different fate. Maybe, maybe not. But it's just like that choice there.
And it's debatable how aware Milo is at that moment. He's had some memories, he's had some connections, he's had some realities, and even Graves says no, he was committing suicide. Like, he didn't want this life anymore. He knew who was coming for him, he knew who that person was, and he wanted to see if he could poke the bear a couple of times. So he wrapped himself up so that Lono had no clue, and then just rolled the dice to see what would happen, as he always does, as Milo's nature. The ending of this book is the best part for me, is the most fascinating part, and it's the part that I think you can just dissect and decide for yourself how aware Milo is in that moment, and how aware he is of his choice that he's making. Or is he just playing Russian roulette because he likes playing Russian roulette, or is he doing it because of his past with Lono and making a choice intentionally to see what happens?
Yeah,
because Graves says it's suicide, right? Graves says that he's facing Lono in this way, fists versus pistol, intentionally.
I know he said that. I hadn't really thought whether or not that was true or not, but yeah,
it's an interesting question, right? And I don't think they're not explicit about
word. Their trigger word. He sees Croatoa, which is their trigger word. And you could tell he then is like fighting back and forth about how much did he remember, how much did he not. What about you, Adam? What did you think of this? Like, how much does he remember? How much does he know? Because he has a line where he talks about, I gotta find it. I mean, he remembers who he was, he likes who he is, or whatever. Go ahead.
I said you could definitely tell that seeing that affected him, but it definitely wasn't as much as whenever it was told to Cole a couple of times. So that's one thing that, I'll talk about that later on whenever we start talking about Echo. There's something.
Yeah, we can get there, but the line I was thinking of, he's like, truth be, he's like, not just her, but Graves, Burns, all of them. And a part of me, it had to be that way. If I wanted to say who I am is Milo Garrett, a private eye. He's going back for I like who I am. I love being me. Like he likes this version better than the previous version. And that's the decision he's making. And obviously when Lono comes in, it's like he's wrapped himself back up in the bandages, even though he didn't need to. You know, he's choosing to be Milo, and this is going to be Milo's fate.
Well, and then, Lono even asked him, who are you, Invisible Man?
Yeah.
I didn't catch it the first time I went through, but the name he gives is, not connected to the books anyway. It is the actor who played the Invisible Man in the 1933 movie.
Yeah. And there's the little bit when he sees the painting. He kind of like, that's the end of the issue, because we as the reader are like, that's a great cliffhanger. We're like, oh crap, is Milo gonna wake up? And then he cuts to him drinking and driving and crashing his car, and jumps to Milo in Atlantic City with the rest of the Minutemen doing the event, right? It jumps to that little section of panels that we keep recurring to, right? Reverting to. And you see Milo engaging with Cole and some faceless Minutemen in the back that maybe we can't quite necessarily recognize as one or the other. You see Milo struggling between reality and dream. His head's hurting. What's going on? Somebody's waking him up. And then he jumps back to Megan waking him up. And she says, Mr. Lewis. And he tries to correct her. He says, my name is, and then she said, Mr. Lewis. And he says, oh, Megan, how's your old man? Like, he knows who she is now, right? Yeah. He's aware of who she is and who her father is. Now, he may not fully be aware of how this all pieces together. It may still be fragmented in his mind, but he tried to give his real name. He tried to say his real identity in that moment. So for me, I like to imagine that he is completely aware, and this whole journey of this book is him coming to complete awareness. And then, like JP is saying, he chooses this new identity over the Minutemen, and then decides, I'm going to go toe to toe with the biggest bear and see what happens, just because that's me. That's the moron that I am. I'm going to bring a knife to a gunfight, or even worse, in this case, I'm going to bring some fists to a gunfight.
Yeah, worse than a knife to a gunfight.
Way worse.
There's just some lines in this story that, like, what got me sidetracked earlier was one of them whenever he first goes to the strip club to meet, about some info, and he's, at the front door, and the lady was like, a little early for Halloween, isn't it? Because, he's still wrapped up.
Yeah.
And she was like, and he says, I want to make sure I wanted to make sure I was here for the good candy. It's like, I don't think she's working tonight.
Yeah. Lots of fun little plays on words all the way through, right? Yeah.
So we see a lot of the other characters in this book, in this particular thing. Like, we get a brief thing with Cole. Lono obviously plays a big role. Megan is obviously a big part of this particular book. We see that Milo is quite the ladies' man in this version, for sure. We get, like I said, Lono. We got Echo. So any of the other characters, or like just his interactions, the detective, anybody else you want to focus on for a minute before we?
I want to say, and maybe you can remind me even, that this was the painting that they briefly referenced in the Brand storyline, that there was this painting traveling from Europe to America, and now we're seeing it arrive in America, that the Trust has purchased this painting, the assassination of Julius Caesar at the hands of all those 13 senators. And this is an ongoing theme, but also an ongoing item, like a reoccurring item, this painting and the Trust's foundations in history, the way the painting is used. I thought there was a reference to it in the Brand storyline, that
there might have been. I didn't remember that, but there might have been,
because it comes from Europe, right? This painting is very old, and the Trust clearly is Augustus is trying to acquire it as almost like part of their legacy, the 13 families, the 13 senators, and all that kind of thing. So I like the history, the idea that this story spreads way beyond the current time. I like that a bunch.
Okay. What about you, Adam? Anything, like any of the details here that jump out to you that you want to spend a few minutes on?
Oh, I'll just mention one thing on Echo that I thought was really interesting, is her name. I forgot what it was.
Echo Moria, like it's a memory, an echo of a memory. Kind of thing.
So I knew that there was the term echo memory, and I actually looked it up because I couldn't remember it. And it's echoic memory. It's the short-term memory of sounds that you hear.
Okay.
It's how sound works to memory as opposed to visually, and how sound triggers memories different than visual.
That's fantastic.
Visually it does. And so that's one reason why I wondered if him seeing that word triggered him 100%, where whenever he heard, the other people heard it multiple times, so that's part of what brought me into question of, was he 100% knew who he was and knew everything? You can definitely tell it affected him, but did it, bring him back 100% or not?
Yeah, it does seem like he's taking more time to piece it together than Cole did.
Yes,
for sure.
Because it is an audio trigger, right? That the hypnosis is broken by this audio trigger. So to have it be something you read, it's a different experience for Cole versus Milo. And I think you're 100% right. And this is why it's sort of like drags out for Milo versus it's this slap to the face for Cole, right? And and as we go forward, you'll see more and more of that, because obviously Shepard tries to wake Wiley up when we saw them in the last story, and he's like, fuck, I don't know the word to wake this guy. Like, I wish I knew the word. I don't know the word. I don't know how to do it.
Doesn't know how to wake him up.
Right.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to discuss on Milo here? I will say one of my favorite little sequences is he and Lono in the diner, where he sits down across from me, and they're showing each other the gun. He's shows him the gun and tells him to sit, and then Lono's like, "Well, I got two," and he's instead of pointing at him, he's pointing at all the other people in the bar. He's just I'm not gonna,
I'll kill her, I'll kill him. I don't care. None of this matters to me. Yeah, Lono is a fascinating character.
The people next to me,
almost like he knew that would bother Milo more.
But he doesn't know who it is.
I think he just knew that for the average person, that would be a concern. For him, it's nothing, right?
Yeah.
For those that have read 100 Bullets and don't know, there is later a spin-off series called Brother Lono, and I've never read it. I think it's a prequel series, but it's a side series.
I would assume it had to be a prequel series.
I've never read it, but I know that it ran for a considerable time as well. Kind of like the Jack of Fables ran, right after and continued on.
I don't know that I could spend that much time with Lono.
And that's why I didn't read it, because for me, 100 Bullets and the Fables are both wonderful ensembles, and I didn't want to spend too much time with any one character. I liked the spectrum that I got.
Lono, out of all the Minutemen that we've met so far, is my least favorite.
He's very one-dimensional, but I will say he does evolve slowly.
Well, and I could definitely see where he's could be and create important parts of the story and be important to the story. But I just meant his character is very one-sided and unlikable.
Yeah.
Granted, you've got to have some of those people.
He's Sabretooth.
Yeah.
He's vicious. He's brutal. He says the unshocking thing that is unacceptable, or horrible, racist, whatever thing, and he commits the most graphic violence. But at the same time, you like that he shows up because he kind of shakes the snow globe, right? Everything gets chaotic afterwards, and that in that way, it's a wonderful spice to add to the recipe, but it's not the only part of the food that you want to eat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad you guys like that one. That one is one of the rare times you get a real self-contained story, beginning, middle, and end that's that long. A lot of times it's a little more broken up.
Yeah, it's a full about 6 issues.
Yeah.
So,
and it didn't dawn on me till right before the show started who Echo was in relationship to going back to France, and I was thumbing through the book and I was like, oh, that's the prostitute.
Well, I thought that when I read it and she mentioned France or whatever, and I was like, was like,
Did
wait.
not
And then I
catch it
just
at
never went
all.
back and checked till the night. But yeah.
I didn't catch it at all, and I went back too far whenever I was thumbing through to find the beginning of where these books started, and I saw her there, and I was like, and then made the connection to France in this story and all that type of stuff. Like 10 minutes before we went on, I was like,
Well, and both of you asked that same question before we went live backstage. Like JP and I were hanging out backstage, and he's like, "Hey, is Echo the same?" And I was like, and then the fact that you came on and the first question you asked was, "Hey, is Echo?" I was like, "Yes."
I just found that as I was backstage.
I love it.
That's how recently it dawned on me for that part.
Okay. All right. So are we ready to move on to volume 6 and these 6 individual vignettes, I guess is the best way
Let's
to
do
put
it.
this. So the first one is a split
Dizzy.
story. It's about Dizzy. We see Dizzy going home, but while we're seeing that, Shepard and Graves are meeting again and having a conversation about Dizzy and whether or not she's ready for whatever is to come. What were your thoughts about this story, Adam? What did you think about what's going on here in terms of Dizzy and where she's at?
It's one that I'm glad they put in there because it, lets you show kind of how much time's passed and, how much the world sort of, I don't know, went on without her, like the world will do without people, without you realizing it, until you step back to, where you used to be or something like that. I'm glad it was short form. And they didn't spend too much time on it.
Yeah.
Because I think that might have got a little bit boring, but I really like how they went back and still left a bunch of stuff unanswered, like what happened to her mom and, stuff like that. I really liked it, especially in short form.
Yeah. What about you, John? What do you think of this one?
I like this volume in general as the way that they kind of give you 6 little, like Damer's saying, vignettes, almost like 6 little annuals. Like we're gonna give you just a reminder of where are all the chess pieces on the board and what's going on with each one of them. It's a wonderful little exclamation mark or not even exclamation, a punctuation mark for each of these characters. And in Dizzy's case, a reminder of all that she's lost, right? Husband, child, a lot of her life has been sort of scattered to the winds, and now she's embarking on this new journey, but she's still very much tethered to the existence that she's walked away from. And meanwhile, you've got Shepard, who Graves is teasing as like, she's a little young for you. Graves is giving him like, you guys, you banging? You banging? And then Shepard's like, it's not, you can tell Shepard is uncomfortable because he has fatherly feelings for her. She's gorgeous, but he has fatherly feelings for her. And he says, I don't want to see her. And then Graves says, dead. And he's like, no, like us. I don't want to see her turn into us, which I think is a wonderful comment on the difference between Shepard and Graves in this story, right? Shepard wants to like fix this, and Graves wants to just blow it all up. Right? Graves just wants to like cause chaos. He's very much the Joker agent of chaos, and I think Shepard has a little bit of that desire to fix it and put it back to what it was. And I think Graves is, despite the conversations they have, I don't think Graves is interested in that. He's not. It's not gonna fix. It's not gonna go back. He doesn't want to fix it.
So I thought this was interesting because he's talking about that she's not ready. Like Shepard's like, she's not ready, and he's like, why? And Graves is like, why are you protecting her or whatever? And and at the end we get the line. He's like, that's smart, Graves. That's for the girl, and for my sake and yours and what's coming, she went where she had to. In other words, he knew she needed this before she could go forward. Whereas Graves isn't like concerned about her in any way, shape, or form other than what she can do for him, like, and what he's trying to accomplish. Whereas Shepard actually, like,
that's a great read. Yes, 100%.
Although I will say, Shepard cares, but he's still going to use her to do whatever it is they're trying to do.
He's torn, right? He has that guilt of like, I know I need to use her. I know she's important, but I also feel for her and I don't want her to get harmed in this. And Shepard and Graves is very much the other side where he's like, I'm going to use everybody, and the ends are always going to justify the means. And I'm just going to. So is it a Magneto Xavier kind of thing where there's one that's got a lot of heart and another that's a lot of fist, and is just going to do what needs to get done? There's that quality between the two of them, a push and a pull. And you've got the Trust on the other side, who are the clear enemy, right, of the Minutemen.
Okay. Anything else with Disney's little one shot here?
I like that, that whenever they the two men were talking, that, they talked about the detective from the last chapter, about how he committed suicide.
Yes. Yeah, this is where we get the line.
How did he do it? Really? Phil's news? No, Lono.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, just, one way to do it.
And that ends the conversation, right? Because then Shepard says, "Done." Like, that'll fucking do it. That'll be way worse than pills and a gun. And then he's like, "Good, back to the girl." Like, that's the end of that conversation. Like, that's how things end.
No need to go further.
And here's another bit like that. If you go a few pages further, they're having a conversation while they're walking by, and he says, and they're talking about the saint and the monster, and they do this a lot, where they don't name the Minutemen, they give them attributes, or they give them a secondary name, and we're left trying to figure out, okay, who do we call the saint, who would we call the monster, like, and that
we got the point man and
so we're left trying to figure out, who would we call the point man, who would we call the monster. And I love that because it puts the story a little bit ahead of us. It gives them a common dialogue. Clearly they've called these characters. We can guess, I would call Lono the monster. Like, we can make that comment. We can say, this person has some saint-like qualities. Maybe they've got a good heart, whatever. Who would be the person you'd put on the front line? Who would be leading the mission? Who would we make our point man, right? But I like that because it leaves us asking a lot of questions.
And that's, you figured out their nickname for Milo in their conversation, because that you said, shame, I liked the bastard. To me, that's, not that bastard, but
and
bastard.
I love that you think
that's his name.
Yeah. And as we'll see later in here, like, at one point he's like, relax, Shepard, I have plans for the point man and plans for you. The boy needs tending to. And it's like, and we're like, you think Lono's the monster, but really he's the boy.
Maybe.
Or it seems that way. I mean, maybe, like, given what happens later, but maybe not. It's like,
so I know who the point man and the boy are, obviously. So for me, like, I get what he's trying to do here. And he's talking about, like, okay, like, how do I, because as they lose Minutemen, they need to replace Minutemen. As they wake up Minutemen, they've got to determine if they're still able to serve the job, right? Milo clearly woke up and was like, I don't want this anymore. Cole woke up and he's like, where's my fucking suit and my tequila? I'm ready for more. They don't know. And obviously we saw certain characters die, which would need replacing, right? What was it? What was Loop's dad's name? Hughes.
Yeah.
But Hughes is his last name. That's another Minuteman that needs replacing, right?
Senior.
Yeah. So, like, there are Minutemen that need replacing, and then obviously they're bringing in people like Dizzy, who are like, okay, like, how do we train these people up, right? And Shepard and Graves are playing opposite ends of the same game of chess, right?
For sure. Okay. Are we ready to move to Cole?
Yep.
So we had seen the life Cole was living before he got woken up. And so he disappeared to jump back into life. And then we see him here going back to where his life before and trying to reconnect with the woman that he was with. Meanwhile, we're getting these cutaways to these idiots trying to rob a bar. And I do mean idiots.
Yes, you should.
So what do we think of Cole here? And this version of Cole we get to see is he's trying to, because he's clearly not the guy that this woman fell in love with at all. Like, he's clearly not. And I'm not sure, like, even as he's doing this, that, like, he actually has any feelings for her. Like, but I will let you guys. So what did you think of this what Cole's doing here. John, what do you think what Cole's doing here?
It's hard to know his motivation, because is he just looking for a lay? Like, is it just a one night thing? At the end of his original storyline, he left the switchblade with the wedding ring stuck in the telephone pole. And it seemed, at least to me, the reader, first time through, that he was saying, this is done. Keep your ring. Like, I don't want anything to do with you. And then he implies here that he was giving her the ring, as in like a promissory note that he still cared about her and wanted to be with her. And it clearly reminds us that there are multiple ways to read these stories and to define what's happening here. They don't necessarily spell it out for us. And he tries to imply that he's genuine, but we are very distrustful because Minutemen are liars, and we know Cole is a deceitful prick, and we're definitely questioning his authenticity. And as readers, we're also looking for this girl and saying, like, you can do better. Like, you can do way better than this guy. He may lay pipe well, but this is not your guy.
No. What about you, David? Can you top that from John?
Sorry, I don't think I could top that. That covered everything.
John After Dark
did it a lot better too. That's because I don't feel like you can trust him. I really don't know what he thinks of her. I don't feel like he's all in by any means, but I don't know how much he does care about her. If he I know he does some, but I don't think he really loves her and wants to marry her. I don't think he's that far. I think, but where it's at in the spectrum between those two, I don't know.
Like, I feel like he went back, and this is a little bit of what we saw with Milo, is that he had lived this other life, and he got pulled back in to the Minuteman life, and I think he clearly has regret that he left her the way he did. But even when he's here and he's talking to her, it's like he doesn't know, like, he regrets that he left her, but he doesn't really want to be with her, even though he's trying to tell her that. Like, or at least that's the way I'm reading it. It's like he's as much trying to convince himself that this is what he wants as he is trying to convince her, I think, during this conversation. Like, and I don't think he's doing a very good job of convincing either one. Like, I mean, and I love the line where, like, at one point he like holds his arms open to her, and she's like, those arms, I used to ache to fall in them. Funny, they don't seem strong enough to hold me anymore. Even though they're like, in this version of Cole, it's much stronger than the version that she knew before. And it's, and I think it's very much that he's torn. He had feelings for her, and he has a regret that he left her the way he did, but I don't think it's really what he wants. Because, I mean, he immediately finds, like we said, this other storyline where these idiots are botching a robbery. He managed to stumble across this, and it's like, oh, I get to do what I do. And it's, and which is really what he wants, I think. He just think he needed to convince himself again. But yeah.
And in that way, it's like a test for himself, right? It's very different than Dizzy, who has a lot of emotional ties and family ties to a certain place in the world. He only has this, in some ways, mirage, this hallucinogenic portion of his life that he lived as the ice cream man selling ice cream, right? And he's just making certain in some ways that he didn't really catch feelings there. That this is not, is this the real me or not? And I think it's like Inception in some ways, where what is the dream and what is the reality for him? And he's not certain. And he's human. He's not certain. It's the human side of the game that Graves is playing with these lives. And he's testing himself to be certain. So maybe there is a little bit of good inside of Cole that feels the need to have this test, but he failed it miserably.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else on this one? I feel like this one's pretty sure. I feel like of all of them, this is the most simplistic of these six in terms of like what's going on here. But Dave Mertz, you got anything else to add?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
All right. So next we get to see Augustus and Benito, and Benito's like, "Hey, take me with you," and like wanting to take maybe more responsibility, maybe not. But we see Augustus is going to this meeting that he goes to, and Shepard is there, and realizes that there's people there waiting to kill Augustus, and instead they end up going after Benito, and we see that Shepard isn't just a guy that organizes, that he actually can do a little bit in this scene. So what did you think of this issue and what's happening here, and who this is actually like, what these people are actually trying to accomplish with what they're doing, I guess. Adam, what did you think of this one?
I thought another good, little vignette, look into Benito and his father's life, and just how, even though they don't always realize it, how close they are to the edge.
Yeah.
That they think they're safe and mighty in their tower, but he had 5 people going to kill him if I forget what his name wasn't there. Shepard wasn't there to just wave him away.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, finish.
And then but Shepard wasn't there for Benito, because Benito had sort of went off on his own, and
John, what did you think about this one? Because I have an interesting thought on here that I'm curious about. But I want to hear what you think of this
I mean, it's obviously a bit of a father-son fable. We get to see Benito, who has consistently up to this point rejected Dad's world, feels obligated and stuck to it, but feels no emotional bond to it beyond maybe frustration or anger or resentment in some way.
Yeah.
And here, when the blood and bullets spray, he comes around. And so that's, for me, that's the beauty of this issue, is the Benito at the beginning and the Benito at the end are wholly different. And Benito even says, like, "Hey, can we play a game?" It's almost like it's almost like the end of I mean, it's a dark, twisted end of Field of Dreams, where it's like, "Can we have a catch?" Like it's the equivalent of that. Like, "Hey, Dad, can you teach me how to murder people?"
Well,
like it's come to that place where Benito's like, "I want to be part of the family. Like, let's kill some folks together." Like that's, and it's twisted but beautiful in the same kind of time. It's like, oh, they're gonna kill together. It's okay.
He's gonna become the evil guy. It's like his dad.
Yeah, it's deep and meaningful.
Yeah. So here's my question. So these guys are sent to kill Augustus. They see Shepard, so they back away, and then but they realize they have an opportunity to go after Benito. And there's like 5 of them with like machine gun pistols, and he's standing there, no idea they're there, and they shoot this random girl, and then just hold their guns at him and give time for like there's a pause, like that. So were they really there to kill Benito, or is this all show? Because they have the opportunity and they don't really take it. So is this Shepard playing a game? Is this Graves playing a game? Like, what is really happening here, as opposed to what we think is, what Augustus and Benito think is happening versus what is actually happening, given everything we've seen so far? What do you? Now, obviously, John, you've read ahead, so I don't want you to like, but but like, and
I think it's good that you're asked, but I think those are intentional questions that that Azzarello Rizzo want you to be asking, right? They want you to be questioning what happens here, because it seems like Shepard has saved the day when he's like shooing the flies away from killing Augustus, but then he doesn't realize that there's other targets they could potentially be going after. And that's when, of course, he rushes, and he happens to be right in time, which you could say is either like perfectly coincidental or is the lucky chance of the dice of the game that Graves is always playing, right? He rolls the dice and sometimes he gets Yahtzee and other times Milo gets shot in the face by Lono. Like he doesn't know when you're playing dice with human lives, it's a chemistry experiment. You don't know what's going to happen.
No. What about you, Dave? What did you think that, or did it?
I didn't really think about that. Now that you mention it, that I could definitely, see either way. To me, it was just Benito letting a woman almost get him killed again.
Well, yeah, Benito has that habit. So.
I mean, just his, blindsidedness to everything else in the world besides women is, what I thought almost got him killed. I didn't even think about the, sitting there, the multiple people with smoking guns pointed on him, but they all get shot before they shoot him. I hadn't really.
Yeah, I mean, they have an opportunity that they don't take. So it was just something that jumped out to me. It's like, oh, they wasted their first shots on random lady standing there to what? Get Benito's attention so he would look at them when they pull the trigger, and then
or they're just really sloppy at what they do and were chosen for their sloppiness. And that first shot was just really crappy aim as that first shot, and then they surround him and are too slow with their second shot. It's hard to say, right? It's hard. There's a lot, again, interpretation is left for the reader in a lot of ways, which I enjoy, which I appreciate that they're not feeding us the answers to things.
No. Okay.
But I meant, to be fair, the one that has got smoke coming from his barrel that shot the girl, he's not using the most accurate weapon.
No, well, this is true.
And he's not, real close either. So, but the fact that they did that, and then, there's him and 3 other people with guns on him, and nobody pulls the trigger until the 4 of them are dead. It's kind of, questionable.
It's just a question. It's, Yeah. All right. Anything else for that? Or are we ready for Lono?
Definitely ready for Lono, because that's the story that for me, like, really takes the snow globe.
Yeah. So we jump back to Lono, who we've seen so far is just the wild card of this group. He just likes to kill. He just likes violence, and he just is, he relishes it, and he's ready to kill Graves, and he's ready to kill anybody that he's never going back to the Minuteman. He just wants to be on his own and kill. And we see him with Shepard, and basically Shepard hires him to do a job, and after he does it, he pays him off, and they have a conversation about, whether or not Lono is going to have to choose a side, and Lono's like, my side is me, and I don't care. He's like, well, it might get chosen for you. And we see that, Lono is still with Echo, but ultimately we see that that Shepard has set him up. And he ends up having a run in with the cops by giving him bills from a bank robbery that are clearly like marked and easily tracked.
One thing I caught is, $1,000 bills aren't just used.
No.
I mean, not in my life.
No, well, they're not in circulation. But they're not used, in the real world anymore. They're only used, the only people that really buy them is collectors. They go for, 3 to 4 times the value of them. So the fact that that's what he got paid in, and that he's, I knew that there was something up there. I didn't know that it was going to be what it was.
Yeah.
And I love that he just starts paying everybody in him. He doesn't break them at all. He's just like, yeah, here's a fucking 1,000. I'll tip you really good. Here you go.
Here's a week and just keep what's left over.
It's like, he's such a prick about it.
Yeah. Well, I love he's like even when Shepard pays him, he's like $1,000 bills. That's tall paper, and he's like, "You're a big man living large. Is that a problem?" Nah. Like Lono just is like, "Oh yeah, that's right."
Nothing he's the coolest man. Nothing phases that guy.
Yeah. But yeah, we see him. So, and ultimately, we see the end of Lono here. Like, that was surprising to me that he bows out this early in the story. What were your thoughts when this happens, John?
I was both like shocked and I was a little mad. I was like, there's more to this guy. There's more for him to be doing here. And I was very frustrated by that. And it was certainly fitting that he would go down in a hail of bullets. Just
well, yeah, I
being a
mean,
prick.
they talked about Milo committing suicide by Lono. Lono clearly, like, when he was confronted with the cops, he says, like, he just commits suicide via cop. I mean, basically here. Like,
I would argue he committed suicide by Shepard.
Yeah.
When he had an opportunity to make a choice. And Shepard was like, you know, you've angered some people. You got to choose a side and get back into this thing. And he chooses to be, I don't know, quote unquote, neutral. He wants to be Switzerland. He wants to be his own guy.
He doesn't want a part of that. He just wants to do his own thing. Yeah.
And Shepard is saying, you don't get that. That's not one of the options. It's an A or a B. It's a true or a false. You can't pick other. And Lono tries to pick other. And I think that's when the game forces the correction, right?
Yeah.
It forces him back. And this is where the rolling the dice, the playing with chance and with human lives can lead to chaos, right? This is a chemistry experiment that there's no guarantee of the results. And maybe somebody has too much of a chip on their shoulder, too much heart for this game, and they get cold, right? They can't survive the process because of what it demands of them. And in this moment, Lono is given the opportunity. He's given the opportunity to be a Minuteman again and come back into the fray. He chooses otherwise and suffers the consequences.
Yeah. What about you, Damage? What do you think of this result for Lono?
It surprised me. I accidentally read farther, so it didn't surprise me as, you know, stuff that happens farther. But it did surprise me. But, you know, then again, like John was saying, that, you know, he went against Shepard and everything. And so I don't know how he didn't think he was going to get some sort of, you know, problem with that. You know, I don't know if he assumed it wouldn't be as, you know, dire as dying, but
he thought he was bigger than his britches in some way. Right?
Yeah.
He thought he was like bigger than Shepard and Graves. And I don't think he understood that he was still just, he may not have been a pawn anymore, but he was definitely not the king and the queen in that game.
Well, yeah, he's, you know, even their conversation here, it's like, let's see, like, find it again. I just had it and then I lost it. When they're talking on the bridge and he's like, you know, you pissed some people off, and he's like, not a day that I go by, and he's like, dangerous people, not more than me. You tell them that. And Shepard's like, there's a war coming, and then it skips ahead, and then it flashes back to this when he's walking away from him, and he's basically, then you may want to stay out of the crossfire if you're not going to choose sides. And he's like, if that's a threat to keep me from siding with Graves, save your breath. I'm not going to side with him. Lono, if Graves wanted you dead, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We have other plans for you. Well, yeah, I mean, ultimately, though, when he doesn't choose a side, that's, you know, that's what they play out.
When the end of that, he's talking about, you know, the is like, so maybe sooner or later you're going to have to pick a side. He's like, is that so, Shepard? It's like, maybe. He says, or maybe the side will pick you.
Yeah.
And that's how the story ends.
All right. Anything else on Lono? We got two more issues left.
No, I'm ready. Let's do more. Let's get to Graves.
All right. So we got Graves meeting with, and basically this is the whole thing of like people looking out their window and like things that are going on in other lives and whether or not they matter or not. And we see Graves meeting with some members of the trust. And meanwhile, we get this little side story of these people that initially try to do good. They see a car accident, they go out and find it. They realize the guy has the winning lotto ticket and end up they end up getting like they're debating what to do with it and whether or not to like try to help it. And the police arrive while they're still like going through the guy's wallet, and they get pinched, and the policeman steals the tickets. Like, but on the other end, is we have this conversation with the trust, these members of the trust that are not happy with Augustus and are ready to like turn the tables on him. And Graves is like, well, I'm not interested in killing him. I don't have any problem with that. And he's, but they're like, well, no, we don't want you to. We want you to bring back the Minutemen once we do. And we're going to give you your greatest want, Graves, which is debatable whether or not that's what he really wants, but that's what they think he wants. So what were your thoughts on this story? Adam, I'll let you go first. What did you think about Graves and his conversation with the trust?
I thought it, again, gave a bunch of backstory. Another good little, issue where they just add a little bit more info in sort of a one shot, but not two. You find the story of the people helping out with the accident kind of interesting because, I think it's another just sort of one off, but just sort of shows that, everything's not as it seems. You've got good people debating on doing something bad, but then how bad they're arguing over how bad they want to go. Do they want to keep all of it? And then, well, the man's probably got family, and he's got 9 kids. Oh, well, how about if we just give him $1 million? And then to ultimately lose it all because they didn't do the right thing. Or the totally wrong thing, but by trying to straddle the line, they lost it all. And it seems like you notice that a lot with a lot of these characters in this book that, if they don't do, pick a side, like we was talking about on the other, that they lose it.
What about you, Tom? What did you think of this one?
I mean, it's probably my least favorite in this volume, but that's because I think the metaphor is probably too obvious. This is it's pretty clear who the writer is trying to imply is the the tiny lives that are being wasted as we see Graves at the end look in the reflection. He's looking at these members of the trust who are coming to him, and he's thinking, you guys blew it. You blew it before, and you're trying to back your way out of this mistake. And we're watching people make that same kind of mistake metaphorically. This is another one of those stories that runs parallel, much like the fountain with the gang violence that we saw in the last session, and Shepard having a conversation and knowing what's going to happen when he's talking to Benito. It's the same kind of thing going on here. It's just maybe a little more patently obvious, and maybe that way it's just a little less intriguing and a little less titillating.
I mean, it's interesting in the fact that like you could see like the betrayal that we already kind of knew was going to exist within the trust, that these are people that went along with the elimination of the Minutemen, but then when they didn't actually get it done, now we're like, well, we'll take you back, and you can still be useful. And the fact that they like dissolved the one family to go to 12, and they're like, well, we did 1, we need to go to 11. And, just the greed that you see within them, and Graves just like humoring them to a certain extent. Like, and this, because it's clear he's not like, they don't understand him. Like, and what he's really after. They think they do, but they don't. And so that was somewhat interesting, but no, it's definitely, I would agree, the weakest of the issues in this particular volume. So you guys got anything else? Are you ready for Wiley?
Definitely ready.
So we go back to Wiley. Still a F up. I'm still working at the convenience store. And I love that Graves brings him the gun and the case and the thing, and Wiley's just like, I'm not going to kill anybody. I don't care. It's like,
yeah.
Like, I don't care if they messed up my life. I don't give a crap. He's like, I'm fine. Thanks. I'm good.
Yeah, typical Wiley fashion. He's like, is it the guy that owns this hotel? Is it my boss? Then I don't give a crap. Like,
It's like-
I screwed up my own life. I take complete responsibility. I'm the screw up here. I mean, it's great. You're giving me this cool briefcase with this crazy gun and these bullets, but it's just luggage for
well,
me.
and I love how he's like, what? But it's like one guy, right? And he's like, yeah. What do I need 100 bullets for?
That's a lot of bullets. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Because we saw Shepard try to wake him up too early, and now you see Graves on his pace. He's like, nope, now is your turn to get the briefcase, and let's see what we do with it. And we've seen people use the gun, we've seen people not use the gun, and both cases screw up or whatever. Then you've got Wiley, who's like, I'm not gonna do anything. I'm just gonna carry it. I'm just gonna take it with me and I'm not gonna kill the person with it. I'm not gonna give it away. I'm not gonna give it back. It's just more luggage, more crap for me to carry around. He's the dude, man. The dude abides.
I mean, he doesn't even look at the file. He's just like, is it the dude that owns this place? Is it Norm? No, who? The guy that owns this, the third that owns this place. No. Is it the guy I work for? No. He's like, then they didn't do anything to me. I'm good.
Yep. And even you could even imagine one more panel at the end. The audience is realizing, like, oh damn, when there's the reveal of whose photo is in the briefcase, right? But you could just see one panel of Wiley going, I don't know that fucker. Like, I don't even know. I think I remember. Maybe I saw him at the gas. Like, I don't even know this guy. Like, why would I kill that guy? It doesn't make any sense. Like, he would totally just like keep going on. You want more, and I know, as promised, Volume 8 is all Wiley. Like, you want more, but at the same time, you could see him being like, I don't even know this guy. Like, why is that guy in my briefcase?
Like, he does not.
He bought gas for me the one time. He was totally nice. He gave me a beer, whatever.
Yeah, he had that hot chick with
his girlfriend's hot.
So the rest of the story is awful person, and the woman that he's apparently abusing comes into the gas station, ends up basically pulling a gun, shooting his boss, gonna shoot him. Like, I'm just gonna say that I still don't, and like Wiley barely escapes because she kind of saves him and then ends up killing him. Like, Wiley doesn't do any of this, and then Graves is back and finally shows him who the person is in the briefcase. And I'll be honest, I still don't think this is enough to get him to actually like do anything. Like, I don't see how what happened in the gas station is any worse than what happened when he went to Mexico. Like, it's going to change him in any way, shape, or form. But like, so I'm with you. Like, I feel like they need the panel of like, and like, why would I care?
Yeah. Like, you could have ended it where it does, and then you turn the page and there's a giant spread page of him going, so what?
Yeah,
like, that's it.
like,
Okay. Throws it out the car window. Like, I don't know who that guy is. And we're like, dude, you met him. He's like, I don't remember him. I don't know. I was too drunk.
Like, I think he looks familiar.
Yeah.
No, it's just. So, Adam, what do you think of Wiley here? Our return to Wiley.
It's just more of the dude. It just
He is the dude.
he is. He's. I mean, until that stuff's, the word spoken to him, he's not going to really care about anything. It's just he abides.
100%.
Yeah, that's
I mean, like, even whenever his boss gets shot, and he's like, "Why'd you do that?" And he says, he pissed me off, and he was like, "So he pisses me off 100 times a day, and I don't do anything about it."
Yeah. And even the like girl writing her like help message in the bathroom, you could tell Wiley's like, that sucks. I don't know what to do about it. He's like, I can see him just totally watching them drive away and being like, that girl's life sucks. That's gotta be.
I mean, he did go out, and, let the air out of the guy's tires.
like, he did try to stall, but yes.
Yeah.
So
Wiley's just such a
like,
hapless character.
I cannot wait to see awakened Wiley, because I feel like how much of this is going to be the same guy. Like,
and I don't want to oversell Volume 8 because it's obviously the next round of our reading. Because it is my favorite, but it's really just because they give a very thick volume to Wiley's journey. And it's also centered in Louisiana. You get this amazing, this one of the things I think is underappreciated about 100 Bullets is the way they utilize various cities and states and their aesthetic as like background, right? We had Wiley on the Texas-Mexico border, and that was really like a character in that storyline. And the volume 8 is all New Orleans. It's this wonderful like jazz gumbo, like they're gonna cook you up with crocodile meat, like violent, like bizarre look at that culture. And I think it fits Wiley. Like Wiley, as much as I think he's this Texan, he's also this like Asian. There's this gambit like quality to him that fits New Orleans to a T. And I think they use that jazz culture really well in that volume. So look forward to that as the stew here, the gumbo that we're going to throw poor Wiley into.
All right. Well, do we have any final thoughts on these two volumes that you want to share here, Daymares? Anything before we close this out?
Not a whole lot. I just thought it was another good mix of the, good, long, meaty story, and then, 6 other little increments to, push the story along, give you, now back at the ranch,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I did enjoy the fact that I think the Milo story was, I would agree with you, like maybe my favorite of the longer stories so far. And then it was a good balance having both of these volumes in this discussion, because you get kind of that like longer individual focus story, and then you get all these vignettes that help move the bigger overarching story along. So I thought it was a good balance in these two books to read them together. I mean, love Milo as a character, and then he's gone. Lono's gone, so it's like, oh, we got rid of 2 of the better characters potentially here. But as long as we've got Wiley, I think we're okay. We're going to be okay. So, at least for entertainment value.
So for planning for people reading ahead, volume 7, like we said in the original, actually, each volume, the name of the volume references the number it fits into the series, right? We had 6 for 6 Feet Under the Gun. 5 is Counterfifth Detective. The 7th volume is just called Samurai, which I thought was fantastic. Is another one like this, where you get several stories all in the one volume. And then 8 is mainly just the Wiley story. That one's called The Hard Way, which is you roll 2 4s in dice, is called 8 The Hard Way.
Nice. All right. Well, we will, John, did you have any final thoughts? Did I not give you a chance to give final thoughts?
I was just trying to reference kind of the design of these 2 volumes is similar going forward to, 7 and 8. I think they do the same idea of like splitting up a bunch of stories in 7 and then giving you one big story in 8. And I like that. I think it works until it stops working, I guess. We'll see how you guys feel about. I can't preach 9 through 13 and see how you guys feel about how it ends. It's kind of like Fables. Some people love it, some people don't like how it ended. Same kind of thing here. We'll see.
Well, we will finally, with the next 2 volumes, get through this monstrosity and be ready.
Oh, so that goes through 7 and 8, and then
let's go through 7 and 8, and
all
then
right.
it ends.
Nice.
So yeah, let's take this through 7 and 8, and then before it ends. So, all right. Well, I want to thank GT Key for hanging out with us a little bit. Darth was here. Psychotron was going on. So appreciate you guys hanging out with us. And yeah, we'll be back at some point. We haven't scheduled it yet, but we'll be back for 7 and 8, hopefully fairly soon. So, with that, we're gonna get out of here. Later, everybody. See y'all.